Part 2 on how I found out my friend was homeless, and at the time we were both 11. So, like I said earlier, I followed her home for about 20 minutes until she came to a stop and went into a tent by a tree. I was so confused because she told me she was going home. Why lie? So I went closer to the tent and shook it and then went around to open it. When I opened it, she had canned food piled in the corner with a blanket down the bottom. She had a lot of things packed into her little old tent. I asked, "What's going on? Are you going camping?" She looked down and said, "This is where I live." I was like, "How does your family live in here?" And she cried and explained that it was just her. Come to find out, she was a foster, but she ran away from home because her foster mom would bring in strange men around her and the rest of the girls that lived in the house with her. I'm not going into full details about what happened because I don't want to put too much of her business out there, but she was touched. It took a couple days for her to come out and tell me about it. She begged me not to tell anyone where she lives because she didn't want to get sent back, but I didn't feel right knowing that she lived in that tent. Come back for part 3. Part 3 on how I found out my friend was homeless, and at the time we were both 11, so I found out she was living in a tent due to her not liking the treatment she was getting by her foster parent. She told me not to tell anyone where she lived because she didn't want to go back, but I didn't feel okay knowing that she lived in that tent. So a week later, I went and told my mom everything she told me, and I was hoping she could help. I suggested to my mom maybe we could adopt her, but my mom wasn't too fond of the idea, so she called this hotline. I forgot the name, but they supposedly helped with stuff like this. She told them everything I told her, and I also spoke to them myself. Then maybe the next morning, they came into my house, and they wanted me to direct where Aaliyah was living. They found her and took her in. I was so happy that she was going to get the help she needed, but 2 months later, I didn't see nor hear from her. I asked my mom if she could call the hotline people, but she said she would, but she never did. Then maybe 2 to 3 weeks later, I see Aaliyah outside, and I get excited and run to her, and when I get closer, she had a black eye. I was like, "What happened?" And she said, "You," and walked away. After that day, I never saw her again. If you are terrible at putting on eyeliner, watch this video. Specifically, the wing. So the Eye Method Beauty eyeliner stamp comes with 2 sticks, a left and a right. On one side is the fine tip, so you could go ahead and line your liner how you want to. On the other side is the eyeliner stamp. Literally all you do is stamp. You don't have to apply much pressure at all. And you can use that fine tip to connect it, but this turned out so freaking nice. Threw on a lash to make that look pop even more. Not even that, y'all. You guys can get a chance of winning these stamp eyeliners. That's right, we're having a giveaway. There are going to be 5 lucky winners. Not only you'll be winning the eyeliner stamps, but you'll also be winning their gel nail polish set, which has 18 different colors. This is a lot of nail polish. So to enter, literally all you have to do is follow Eye Method Beauty on Instagram, and also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Be sure to tag 3 friends. Send screenshots when you're done. Storytime about the guy who pretended to be transgender to get into the girls' bathroom. So we're going to go ahead and call him Danny. And at the time, I knew of Danny, but I didn't really know him. We weren't friends or nothing like that. Danny was known as the gay guy. He would always have his makeup done, and he would hang out with some of the girls. Everything was fine and cool until we entered our junior year, and Danny came out as transgender. He started wearing wigs and dressing more feminine-like. Now, when he would get dressed up, he would look completely different than what he looked like as his, born male self. You would think that he was a different person when he would get dressed up. Well, one particular day, he didn't get dressed up, and he entered the girls' bathroom. When he did that, all of a sudden, it was a big group of girls running out of the bathroom screaming. If you guys want to know why they ran out, come back for part 2. This is part 2 of the guy that pretended to be transgender to get into the girls' bathroom. So, like I said before, junior year was the year Danny came out as transgender. Some days he'd get dressed up, some days he didn't. When he entered the girls' bathroom, a group of girls ran out of the bathroom screaming. I think maybe a couple hours later, after lunch, Danny was called to the office, and rumors went around about Danny trying to look through the girls' stalls. One girl claimed that he was peeking through the stall to look at one of her friends, and Danny was suspended. I think 2 weeks later, Danny came back to school, and she completely stopped wearing feminine-type outfits. That same week, me and my friend Kenneth were walking past the boys' bathroom and we heard a lot of fumbling going on. I told him to go check what was going on. When he checked, there was a group of guys in the bathroom jumping Danny. I'm running out of time. Come back for part 3. Part 3 of the guy that pretended to be transgender to get into the girls' bathroom. So, like I said earlier, Danny was in the bathroom and he was getting jumped by a group of guys. After it was over, he walked out last and he walked over to his locker. So I followed him to see if he was okay, and he had a black eye and his lip was busted. I asked him if he wanted me to walk him to the nurse and why did they even jump him. Danny replied, the guy said I'm not allowed into their bathrooms anymore. He said anytime he ever entered there, he'd get bullied or teased for being gay. Then I asked him, I thought you were transgender. He said that because he didn't want to go into the guys' bathrooms anymore. I said, what about the incident about you peeking through the girls' stalls? He said, I never looked through any of the girls' stall. I was just seeing to see who was in the bathroom so I could go in. He said, I'm gay, I don't even like girls, and it wasn't my intentions to make anyone uncomfortable. Come back for part 4. When I was younger, I grew up with a cut on my face. It went down from my cheekbone all the way down to my neck. It was very long, the longest cut anyone has ever seen. When I was in school, teachers and students would ask, how did I get that cut, or if it still hurt? I would tell them it didn't hurt, but I didn't know where the cut came from. My mom actually told me I was born with it. Some teachers would say, that doesn't look like a cut you were born with. I think when I got a little older to understand, I asked my mom again, how did I get this cut on my face? She'd say, as usual, you were born with it. But I don't know, I just had a feeling there was something she wasn't telling me. If I could, I asked my dad, but my mom told me that he passed away a couple weeks after I was born. When I turned 18, I finally went to the dermatologist to see what was up with this cut. They told me the cut looked as though someone cut me with a sharp object. Later that week, I went to my aunt's house and told her about my dermatologist visit. She broke down in tears and started apologizing. Come back for part 2. So after going to the dermatologist about the cut I had on my face my entire life, I went to my aunt about it and she broke down and cried. She apologized and told me that I needed to speak to my mom. She said she thought it would be best if she told me. So I went home a bit confused and I talked to my mom. I told her the dermatologist told me the cut on my face wasn't from something I was born with. My mom looked at me and said, I never told you because I didn't want you to feel bad about this family, your father, but when you were 3 weeks old, your dad did this to you. I said, what? What do you mean? He did this to me? Why? She replied, your dad was really sick. I cried and asked, why would he do this? She looked at me and said that he tried to get rid of you. We couldn't afford to take care of you. But I pushed him off of you before he could have did anything. She said my aunt had called the police. My mom and dad were fighting and they shot him and he died that day. There was a girl named Jessica Phillips that went missing in my high school. She went missing in the middle of our junior year. When her parents came out about it, the school put posters up everywhere, alerts on the news. 2 weeks later, they decorated her locker. Ever so often, I see her closest friend weeping during class, and the teachers would excuse them out. The devotion of love she was getting after she went missing was outstanding. But the thing is, no one liked Jessica. Actually, everyone hated her. Don't get me wrong, she was the most popular girl in school, but she was an asshole. She was very nasty and rude and did anything to get what she wanted. I heard she once gave this boy Ronnie peanuts for not doing her homework anymore. He wanted to get into sports and didn't have time for it, and he was allergic to peanuts. The girl was practically a bully. Her friends were all followers that secretly hated her but wanted to be her. But it's crazy to see them all crying over her whereabouts when they all wanted her gone. But I know why she went missing. Come back for part 2. Jessica going missing didn't faze me. Actually, the days felt lighter when she wasn't there. Yeah, she was the talk of the town for weeks, but I'd rather that than to actually see her. And I know some might say I'm heartless, but Jessica did it to herself. So the night of Nicole's birthday party is when it all started. Nicole and Jessica were like frenemies. I mean, they were friends, but they were always in competition with each other. I'd say Nicole was the second popular girl in school. She was the first, but she dropped to second because she lost her boyfriend Luke to Jessica. He cheated on her with Jessica. I can say that's when the war started. Anyways, the night of Nicole's party, Jessica wasn't invited. I remember overhearing her during lunch that she was going to plan to crash and ruin Nicole's party. Pretty devious if you ask me. So the night come and I go to Nicole's party. An hour goes by, and I take a step outside of the side of the house to get some fresh air. I see Jessica creeping from the back. I say, "Jessica, is that you?" She looks at me, and before I know it, someone grabs her face and pulls her into the bushes.